Are these the first volleys in America's next civil war?
He's not a tough guy. He's a bully and he's a bitch.
He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig.
And he can suck my
He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt.
I'll meet him in a hotel room any day of the week and give him a Louisville slugger.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Kiss my mother.
Which side of the aisle is really spewing hateful rhetoric?
Pointing what appears to be a water gun at the image of President Donald Trump projected on a whiteboard, art teacher Pale Modi has now been seen by countless viewers.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, The J.J. McCartney Show, exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage.
How much longer can America survive this kind of hatred?
Video depicting comedian Kathy Griffin holding the bloody, decapitated head of President Trump are no joking matter for the Secret Service.
The rhetoric that has inspired the violence has come from the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
They're involved in the coup, an active attempt to start a bloody civil war.
I want people to imagine an FBI director that has the stones to investigate the deep state. Imagine a justice system that has the integrity to prosecute corrupt government officials. They have refused to apply the 14th Amendment and give conservatives equal protection under the law. What we've seen here has been the gradual takeover of the government by corporatism, by globalism. They have wrested control of our government away from the citizenry and put it in the hands of a few special interests. And these special interests are as evil as the day is long.
We finally do have a president who has the integrity to do this. We finally do have a DOJ who has the integrity to do this. We know that we have people around the president who not only have the integrity, but have the information and the contacts to get everything done you just said. And you say, well, why aren't they doing it? Everything you're seeing on the news, that's what it's about. That's what this investigation's about. That's what calls of impeachment are about. That's what the globalist attack against Trump is about. That's what the hearings are about. That's what the allegations of Russian spying are about. It's about keeping them off point, keeping them off the agenda, keeping them off task. A lot of what you're watching happening right now, and the misdirection and the complete trying to keep Trump off target goes to that birth certificate. The worst crime in American history was perpetrated against America under the regime of Barack Obama. The media is complicit. Congress is complicit. Federal law enforcement apparently has been complicit. We've got a CIA whistleblower, Dennis Montgomery, whose attorney, Larry Klayman, put it all over the internet the other day that he has said that all of this spying that's been going on American people, that it resulted in manipulation and collusion with judges, Supreme Court justices, congressmen, etc., that James Comey was involved in it, that he was at the top of it. All of this stuff you're seeing about Donald Trump's with the Russians, Donald Trump needs to be impeached, Donald Trump, this is a smokescreen to keep our eyes off of what really happened and what's really going on. And America had better wake up to this, JJ.
Your federal government, your federal law enforcement agencies, our federal intelligence agencies, your federal government in toto has been compromised. The fact that Donald Trump has arrived and said, I'm not going to go along with the status quo anymore, is the cause for alarm for these people on the left. And ultimately, Carl, is it possible that yesterday was simply the first shot fired in an impending civil war between two irreconcilable ideologies?
I don't want our children and grandchildren to see or to participate or to fall victim to such a thing. I don't want our nation to go through such a thing. I don't know that we could survive that. Like Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, when he said, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. I mean, God's people, we need to pray. We need to not be afraid to speak truth.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, The J.J. McCartney Show. Exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state. The following is a Nightside Radio Studios production.
From the wind-powered Nightside Radio Studios,
tear down this wall.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
It's this man. It's the compassion. It's the dignity. It's the wisdom. It's the horse sense of the guy.
Did you know that 65% of the people murdered in the last 10 years were killed by handguns?
Would it make you feel any better, little girl, if they was pushed out of windows?
The American people have seen the truth, and they can see through your lies. There's coming a day when publications such as yours turn into nothing more than flea market advertising. They'll be handing it out for free in grocery store parking lots under everybody's windshield wiper. Yeah, that's the future for the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other liberal publication in this country. We are not going to tolerate your bull anymore. None of it. The American people are fed up. I thought we made that clear on November 8th, but apparently you people in the media just don't get it. A new chapter in American history begins now.
It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is the person to make America great again.
We are a team.
They said it couldn't be done.
Together we will lead our party back to the White House.
He said it must be done.
Beginning on January 20th, we cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. The most important difference between our plan and that of our opponent is that our plan will put America first.
Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you, Marcus, and hello, everybody. Welcome to your Thursday. Welcome to February 2018. I'm J.J. McCartney. It's great to have you with us. We got a huge show on tap today. We have Michael Cutler with us. We're going to talk about about President Trump's thoughts on immigration reform, specifically the Dreamers and DACA, and what the president had to say on Tuesday nights. Is it a good thing, or is it giving away too much? Well, we'll talk about that, plus a whole lot more. I thank you for joining us today, and hello to Mr. Michael Cutler. Glad to have you with us, Mike.
Glad to join you. Much better this week than the communications problem last week.
Oh, yep. We're golden. We're golden. I'm really thrilled to have you with us today because, obviously the president had a bit to say on Tuesday night. He was not terribly specific, but it sounds as though he's ready to compromise and grant amnesty by any other name to 1.8 million plus participants in the Dreamer Act and DACA. What are you concerned about this, first of all?
Yes, I am. And I have an article that's on Front Page magazine that will be coming out from what I was told this evening. I just did an article for Newsmax about it, and I did a television interview with Newsmax with my friend Bill Tucker over there. And here's the problem. It's an amnesty. And I don't know where the president came up with the number of 1.8 million, because there was another report coming out of Washington that it could be 3.6 million. So let's put that in perspective. 3.6 million is roughly the size of the Reagan amnesty of 86. So we're not just talking about DACA anymore, because these are aliens who would claim they could have participated in DACA, but for reasons unknown decided not to. Maybe because they really weren't here back then. It may also involve aliens who came in since DACA came and went and they closed registration. So here's the problem that we have. Nobody really knows how deep the water is in the deep end of this pool. Because what would prevent people from running the border? We're going to build the wall, we're getting the money. Well, there is no wall. There is no way of stopping. And it's not just the Mexican border. This entire all-consuming focus on the Mexican border is kind of like plugging one hole in the bottom of that colander that you use to drain pasta and now saying that pasta is a watertight bucket. It's only one hole. And so even if we plug the one hole, and that won't happen for years, aliens are still going to come by stowing away on ships or by landing their ships along our coastline where there are no inspection facilities. You know, I always worry about ships meeting fishing boats at sea. So a fishing boat goes out with 3 fishermen and comes back with 30 fishermen, okay? And it's going to happen. You're going to have people coming across the Canadian border. You're only limited by your resourcefulness. If you ever watched the TV series, and they made a movie of it, Miami Vice, the bulk of cocaine from Colombia used to come into the United States through Florida on speedboats. During the Reagan administration, they launched a massive effort to block those speedboats by deploying Coast Guard and Navy assets to block those drug runners. Guess what? They didn't go away. They didn't say, well, we'll have to sell our cocaine elsewhere. They started pumping it in through the Mexican border. That's when Mexico became the hell on earth that it now is, because the effect was to move the drug trafficking from the water to the land border between the United States and Mexico. If you close the land border with Mexico, the smugglers will be resourceful and find other ways. You know, when I've testified before Congress, I refer to immigration as a system, not unlike a balloon. And we all know that if you squeeze a balloon at one end, it bulges at another end. So the idea that we're going to give people lawful status who entered the United States without vetting, without inspection, this nonsense they entered undocumented is a make-believe word. And let's be clear on this, JJ. This is not political correctness, okay? I'm politically correct. I really am. My family, my kids, my friends never hear me use the N-word, for example, or any word that even smells of it. The notion of using language that's insulting, think of where the word denigrating comes from, is outrageous, and it's wrong, and it's repugnant, and it's not what any decent person should engage in. That's political correctness. The misuse of language to alter perceptions is purely Orwellian. People think in words. If you alter the words, you alter the thought process and understanding over time. I wrote an article about that for the Social Contract. The title of my article was Language Wars, the road to tyranny is paved with language censorship. So we're talking potentially about an unknown millions of aliens, unknown millions, coming into immigration and saying, oh, I've been here since I was 12. I am now 33 years old. I want my lawful status. Now, what most people don't know, and in fact, I just got off the phone with a colleague who had been an adjudications officer for the old INS in Washington, it takes minutes to approve an application. It can take days to deny an application. If you are confronted with a massive swamp or load or flood, whatever you want to call it, of applications, the only way you can keep pace with that flood is to approve as many applications as possible. This is Lucy at the Bonbon Factory on steroids. Or maybe a better analogy, if you remember the guy that used to spin the plates on the ends of those long sticks, and he'd have to keep running from one to the other to keep them spinning so they wouldn't crash. Well, imagine each one of those spinning plates is an application, and if it crashes, it means you've given lawful status to a criminal or a terrorist.
Wow.
On 9/11, we lost more people than we lost at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. The casualties at Pearl Harbor were caused by the entire Japanese Navy. The casualties on 9/11 were caused by 19 men barely out of their teens.
Wow.
And the death count from 9/11 isn't done yet. 2 weeks ago, a firefighter died of disease that's directly related to the toxins he ingested when the towers collapsed.
Yeah, the death toll continues to climb from 9/11.
Yes. Yes, and you would think it didn't even happen if you listen to the Democrats. I mean, think about this. 2 weeks before that, or 3 weeks before that, a police captain who led the charge in searching for survivors and then for human remains at Ground Zero, it became known as the Pile, killed himself. He was suffering from a terrible, painful form of cancer. He had multiple surgeries and finally had reached the point where he couldn't tolerate the pain any longer, and he shot himself to death. The toll continues. And so if you look at the 9/11 Commission report, and the 9/11 Commission was crystal clear, there was no equivocation, there was no wavering. 9/11 was the direct result of multiple failures of the immigration system. Period. Exclamation point in capitals, in 500 font words. Okay. So if it was the immigration system that failed, why in the world are you still trying to use a broken adjudications process to deal with an onslaught of millions of aliens? And by the way, one point that I want to hear what you want to say. We used to be told that, in order to attack us, the terrorists just have to get it right once. Every single application for any immigration benefit represents an opportunity for the terrorists getting it right that one time. What do you think of that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's sobering to think of, but it's also, very factual. And the thing that bothers me, going back to 9/11, and I don't remember the exact number of first responders, police, and firefighters that perished in the actual collapse of the towers. I know it was hundreds.
Yes.
And
300 odd firemen. I don't have the number of police officers. I really should have it. I'm embarrassed because every one of those lives was a tragic, horrific loss to America, and to New York, to the department, and to their families and friends.
Exactly. And here's the question I have regarding the first responders, police, firefighters, paramedics or whomever from the fire departments. I would think that the vast majority of the people that perished, the firefighters and the police that perished on 9/11 were either heads of households, breadwinners, parents, and their families, of course, were devastated by those losses. And you're right. I mean, the country has selective amnesia when it comes to the price of lax border security and enforcement. And as you've said many times, every city that has an international airport is a port of entry for illegal immigration. And, on top of that, the other thing that's an outrage, and for a long time this has been happening, where the government takes those people crossing the southern border and puts them on a plane and flies them to some unsuspecting community. And, of course,
the unaccompanied minors with MS-13 infesting 40 cities now. 40 states.
Yeah. And just,
40 states.
How do you calculate the cost to American cities, states, counties, and the federal government? How do we calculate that cost when it comes to illegals in the country taking away benefits that rightly belong to citizens of the United States? And this is madness. And the idea that we're going to give amnesty to 1.8 million, according to President Trump's estimates, this is so much different than the rhetoric on the campaign trail in 2016.
It's different. It goes 180 degrees against everything that he claimed that he stood for. Now, people have said to me, this is just a bargaining tactic. I don't know what the bargain is here. That's kind of like going in to buy a new Corvette and you find out that it's $60,000, so your opening bid is $100,000. What are we doing? By the way, the number, 412 emergency workers died on 9/11, 343 firefighters, 37 police officers, 23 members of the New Jersey Police, Port Authority Police, and so forth. So 412 and more have since died because they died of the toxins to which they were exposed. 412. Think about that number.
Wow.
And so the Migration Policy Institute, which is a pro-open borders group, Doris Meisner, the former head of the INS, involved with that organization, I believe, who thought that her job was to naturalize as many aliens as possible, who thought that the agency needed to be customer-oriented. I also agree with the approach of customer-oriented, where I disagreed with Ms. Meisner. She thought her customers were illegal aliens. I thought our customers were the citizens of the United States of America. And by the way, I made that specific point when I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee back in March of 2013, my last hearing. I hope to go back to do more hearings. We'll see what happens. But there's got to be some sanity to what we are doing. There's got to be some sanity to what we are doing. America is obviously valuing illegal aliens over its own citizens. America is valuing illegal aliens over lawful immigrants. Apparently, if you're here illegally, you are golden. We will open all of the doors to you. And running our border is not an administrative violation. It's my understanding that during meetings with members of Congress, a member of Congress who had been a member of the Border Patrol, I'm not going to talk about names, but claimed to them, oh, this isn't just an administrative violation like jaywalking. It's not. It's not. So let me be crystal clear, because I had a role in the creation of law that flies in the face of that stupendous, outrageous, unforgivable lie. If you enter the United States illegally for the first time, it is an administrative violation of law. That's true. If you've been here multiple times, running the border is a felony. If you have been deported previously, it's a 2-year maximum felony if you have no criminal history. However, I had worked with Senator Al D'Amato in the early 80s because I was frustrated. And I'll tell you why I was frustrated. And this is where really looking for solutions comes in, because solutions can be found if we want to find solutions. The problem is the big word if, the biggest 2-letter word in the English language. There's a wonderful Yiddish expression that says, if my grandmother had different gonads, different genitals, she would have been my grandfather. How far do we carry the if? I was going to be an engineer way back when. I look at things and try to solve them. When I was a new agent, I arrested a citizen of Mexico who had been deported 3 times previously. He was in a barroom brawl, pulled a knife out, got arrested. The police decided they really didn't want him if we would take him. And in those days, this was in the mid-'70s, they did what they always did. They called immigration. What a novel thought. It said, we have a guy that was in a barroom brawl. Someone charged at him with a chair, whatever it was. He pulled a knife out, so we're not sure if he wasn't simply defending himself. The easiest way to resolve it, we found out that he was deported. Take him off our hands and just get him out of here, and everybody will be happy and the sun will rise tomorrow. So we did. And because he was deported, I went to our prosecution liaison officer and said, I've got a prior deportee. And the guy looked at me and said, congratulations, what do you want to do? I said, well, aren't we supposed to prosecute him for unlawful reentry? He said to me, you're dreaming. He said, does the guy have criminal convictions? I said, no. Has he reentered previously? I said, yes. He said, how many times? I said, 3. Within the last 6 months? I said, no. He said, they're not going to prosecute him. I said, why? He said, well, the resources are so limited. If we tried to have them prosecute every reentry case, by the end of the week, all of the resources for the U.S. Attorney's Office would be expended on those cases. And then what do you plan to do next week when there's more criminal cases and drug dealers and spies and terrorists coming in?
And this
just so they have
this underscores the urgency of real border patrol and real enforcement right at the border. Keeping people from coming to America is likely as vital a part of this as anything. And you know, the things that people were saying about Donald Trump, because he was campaigning on the idea of building a wall, building a sturdy, impenetrable barrier. And you know, the funny thing is, the Democrats have said, "Oh, that will never work." But if you ask the people in San Diego, the people in Tucson, the people along the southern border, they will tell you that barriers absolutely do work. And we need more of them.
Not entirely. Yes, we need the wall, but here's the point you're missing. And let me finish what I was saying. There's a reason I'm getting to this point. So I said, and so how are we supposed to deal with it? They said, well, you have to have multiple issues that have to be addressed. And then the final line, which made me think, was, look, it's only a 2-year felony. And the judge can sentence them to less than 2 years. Mostly they sentence them to time served. So what are we even achieving if we prosecute? And I said, then why is it only a 2-year felony? Maybe a 2-year felony is fine for the guy working illegally on a farm or washing dishes in the back of a greasy spoon diner or doing day labor work. But if you have a guy who has criminal convictions, why isn't this a 20-year felony to make it clear that when we deport you, we don't want you back here again? And they said, well, that's not the law. We enforce the law that exists. They said, well, why don't we convince a senator to write a new law? I approached Senator Al D'Amato with my proposal. He said, if you can get me more agents to substantiate what you're saying, I'm willing to consider it. Over 6 months, 30 of my buddies went through Senator D'Amato's office. And unbeknownst to me, Walter Connery, who at the time was the chief of investigations in New York, he was an attorney. He had been previously the deputy inspector for NYPD Internal Affairs. He was our chief of internal affairs in D.C. before coming to New York to head up the investigations division, had written a legislative initiative to accomplish the same goal. Just after D'Amato people spoke to my 30 colleagues. So we had primed the pump. Al D'Amato got the law passed, the aggravated felon reentry law. He also went to the Reagan White House at my behest, told the president that we need to hold deportation hearings in the prisons. Why do you let someone sit in jail for 10, 12, 15 years, and then when that person's released, we initiate deportation proceedings? Usually they file an appeal. If they have deep enough pockets, they have an attorney, and the attorney springs them where they either become lost, they become absconders, and they commit more crime. They hurt more people. If you can get them ordered deported while they're doing their criminal time in jail, you can take them from the jail cell to the airport the day they're to be released. That became the institutional hearing program, okay? And because of the change in penalties, and I got to make the first arrest in New York, it was a Dominican drug dealer who lost his green card because of drug and weapons convictions. He got sentenced to 5 years in jail. That deterrence has kept many from coming back, but more importantly, the U.S. attorneys started to prosecute those cases because now the jail was significant. And you could put together a case against unlawful reentry in an afternoon. If you look at these huge investigations involving criminal conspiracy and wiretaps and informants, you could spend 2 years putting together a case. I've seen it. And the guy gets 3 years in jail for criminal conspiracy. In one afternoon, I could put together the evidence for a reentry case, and the guy gets 5 or 10 years in jail because I spent a day working on gathering the evidence, the executed warrant of deportation, getting a fingerprint match, and so forth. And you go to the grand jury, they give you the indictment, you walk into the U.S. attorney, it's a done deal, and 99% of the time, what's the guy going to argue? He's not here, so they plead guilty, they get their jail sentence, and we deport them, and if they come back again, the sentence only goes up higher. Because of that one change in law, unlawful reentry is now the most frequently prosecuted crime for the entire U.S. Attorney's Office across the United States. The point being, change certain aspects of law, you could have a huge impact. Now, the problem with the fence, the wall, is this. You still have 95,000 miles of coastline, stowaways, and ships coming ashore at other than ports of entry. You still have the Canadian border. You still have the visa waiver program. You still have people getting documentation in different names and getting visas under fake names, even though they were previously deported. The wall by itself won't get the job done, period, underscore, exclamation point. It's a system.
Yep.
And by creating a massive amnesty program, the president is defeating the system.
Exactly. He's opening the floodgates again. He really is.
Yes.
I mean, it's.
And by the way, the Migration Policy Institute said 3.6 million. I don't know where they got that number from. What happens if people yet to arrive in the United States easily run the border, easily stow away on ships, easily come in through Canada and claim, because they can be in their 30s.
Yep, they claim they've been here all along.
Yep, and by the way, if they ever left the country, even if they were here, they're disqualified. How do you know when they move across the borders without inspection? You have no way of knowing.
Yeah. This is letting a genie out of the bottle. And
let me tell you,
it's a mess. It's a mess.
It's an invitation to fraud. Immigration fraud was the topic of my very first congressional hearing 4.5 years before 9/11. The hearing was predicated on the 2 terrorist attacks in 1993 at the CIA and the first Trade Center bombing, both deadly attacks. So why on earth would you do this when the number could quickly go from 3.6 million to 10 million, 12 million? We have no idea how big this barrel is. This is such a disaster waiting to happen. I'd love to know what in the world President Trump is thinking.
Now, Mike, one other thing I want to touch on today. I mean, I know your expertise has been working with the INS and all of the experiences that you've collectively had during your 30 years plus of service to the government.
Right.
And here's another thing I want to mention, and this has to do with the memo that is slated to be released as early as perhaps tomorrow, and the controversy that's flared up from this memo. Yesterday, FBI Director Christopher Wray expressed concern that releasing this memo would somehow undermine the FBI or affect investigations that are ongoing, etc. Now, first of all, I don't think it's the FBI director's place to publicly speak on this without without having some open communication with the White House and talking about what's really in this report and what it will amount to. But now you've got CNN saying, oh, FBI Director Chris Wray could quit over the controversy. I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing, but I wanted to get your take on it. First of all, what do you suspect is in this report that the FBI is so gravely concerned about?
I really hate speculating. As an agent, I did my work based on solid facts and evidence. What I think he might be concerned about is sources and tactics. And if, in fact, that is what's involved, that would be devastating. So let's understand that. One of the reasons that you worry about classified material is it goes to tactics. One of the programs that I watched, I found it interesting. They used to show DEA programs on cable. I don't know if you ever saw it, but they would show DEA doing raids. And they would show them wiring up an informant and flipping the informant, and then the informant would get them information. They really, it was a how-to book.
Exactly.
Now, I have to tell
exactly. I understand that.
Now, wait a moment. Understand that program never should have aired in my Cutler judgment.
I agree.
Now look what we've seen drug trafficking organizations do. They hire brilliant defense attorneys, the best of the best of the best. Remember, they have unlimited pockets, billions of dollars. And they hire the lawyer. What do you think the lawyer does? He goes into court and reviews all the records of all prior prosecutions where the people went to jail. And what is he looking for? Tactics used by the agents and by the prosecutors to perfect the case.
Exactly.
So if that's what's in the memo, I agree 1,000% with Ray, if that's what's in the memo. I haven't seen the memo. I don't know that that's the case. I don't know. Let me just finish. You asked me a question. I don't know if they couldn't simply redact 2 sentences to address that issue without knowing what's in the memo. That's why I started by saying I really don't like speculating.
Understood.
But if he believes that that's the case, then his fears are 1,000% justified.
You know, I think one of the things that I suspect is going to be among the information that's in this memo is the process by which the FBI petitioned the FISA court possibly using the Steele dossier, which has largely been completely discredited.
Right.
And the questions that were asked at the House investigations, or rather the hearings, the House Judiciary Committee hearings, the question was, did you use this bogus dossier to get warrants to monitor Donald Trump's campaign? And they did not get a straight answer from the director. They did not get a straight answer from anybody. I believe if that's the concern the FBI has, that the significance of misusing a dossier that you know was bought and paid for by the Democrats and Hillary Clinton, this speaks to something much more damaging.
I agree. I agree.
And it needs to come out.
But here's the point. It wasn't misusing the dossier. It was really perverting the system.
Yes.
Okay? It was really turning the FBI into the secret police, if that's the case. But the problem I have, and that my gut tells me that there's probably an element of that also. And the public has the right to know. And people need to be prosecuted if that's what happened. Look, I can't tell you how many times I swore out search warrants. And when you stand in front of the magistrate and raise your right hand and say, Your Honor, this information that I've provided to you was provided to me by an informant of established credibility. This is the same informant who on 6 prior occasions gave me evidence that resulted in the arrest of 8 people, the seizure of 3 firearms, the seizure of 26 kilos of drugs. If you make that statement, it better be accurate, because you're committing a felony if it isn't.
And the other side of this coin too is
I'm trying to be balanced in my explanation of what we're looking at.
The FISA courts, the laws that were written to create the FISA courts, were written intentionally to keep the proceedings quiet, to keep them secret, because obviously you cannot have the public getting information in real time about bad players that you're trying to
Now, also understand, FISA is generally not about criminal prosecutions either. Okay?
Right.
The goal is intelligence. So understand that there's a difference. When I would swear out a warrant, it wasn't for the purpose of gathering intelligence, although certainly it was intelligence, but to perfect additional criminal cases. This was intelligence involving national security.
Right.
Okay? So, and I did not do that. Generally, that was under the purview of the FBI most of the time. And I had friends at the FBI who dealt with those issues. One young lady that I had a relationship with before I got married worked on counter-espionage. So she was involved with FISA court. And I wasn't allowed to know anything about it. It was funny. I was working on top-secret material involving national security where narcotics were concerned. She was doing over dinner. And we really adhered to it, which is why I'm so disturbed by what I see going on with the release of information. Nobody would have known what we talked about over dinner, but we wouldn't discuss the work we did because we weren't supposed to. It's not just about having a top secret clearance, it's need to know.
Right.
And so when you see all the leaks, especially with the allegations being made against Trump, it's infuriating to me. And really and truly, I've never seen our government stoop to this level of corruption and dysfunction that we've been witnessing in the last couple of years. It's very alarming to me. This isn't the America that I swore to protect when I became an agent many years ago. And I'm looking at the politicization of law enforcement in ways that I can't believe. And I want your audience to understand that this even has a nexus to sanctuary cities. Okay. I've worked with the FBI jointly. I arrested a suspected IRA terrorist with the FBI. The second largest contingent of law enforcement personnel assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force are INS, or I say INS agents, Force of Habit, ICE agents. I've arrested terrorists in my career. My very first case, which was supposed to be a ground ball, nothing to see here, folks, kid from Israel, altered visa, turned into the discovery that this kid, so-called, was a member of the PLO here to get money to purchase explosives that were to be used to destroy an Israeli oil refinery. When I made that discovery, notified my chain of command, they notified the FBI. We brought the Israelis in. We prevented a massive bombing in Israel. They arrested a half dozen co-conspirators. And sometimes the way that you shake a tree to get the fruit from the tree is to make arrests for crimes that don't relate to espionage or crimes that don't relate to terrorism or that crimes that don't relate to drug trafficking. If I wanted to flip an informant and I'm working with DEA, let's say, or the FBI, and I had desks at both agencies, I might well arrest somebody and charge him with unlawful reentry. I might charge him or her with committing visa fraud. Now, why did you do that? So that the person, to the knowledge of their cohorts, was arrested on an immigration charge. Meanwhile, our goal was to get that person off the street and apply pressure so that he or she might become a cooperating witness. So the cover is they were arrested for an immigration violation when in reality, standing behind me was a squad of FBI or DEA agents. Now, if you have a sanctuary city that shields those people from our purview and discovery, they could be impeding an ongoing investigation involving terrorism, major criminal activities, espionage, and so forth. So sanctuary cities are obstructing more than simple immigration law enforcement. They are creating opportunities for terrorists to hide themselves in those same locations. Imagine the damage this does to U.S. national security and why sanctuary cities need to be brought to a screeching halt.
Now, Michael, there's another question I want to ask regarding this memo, and it really doesn't regard the memo. It regards the state of the FBI today. And what I want to ask is this. How much damage, how much lost trust has the FBI incurred in the last couple of years? How much do the American people now have a cynical view of the FBI, and who really is to blame for that?
Oh, goodness. Well, it's a problem. And by the way, it's not just the FBI, it's the ICE agents also. Do you know that assaults on ICE agents are more than double now what they were a couple years ago?
Wow.
You have a member of Congress, a woman, who equates ICE with the Gestapo. Now, I have to tell you, as an American, as a former immigration agent, as a Jew, my grandmother, for whom I was named, was killed by the Nazis in Poland. How do you think I react to that kind of a statement? And I've heard this before when I participated in panel discussions where a mayor of a town in New Jersey, not far from Princeton, I don't think he was the mayor of Princeton, but perhaps near Princeton, during a panel discussion at the SEIU, which, by the way, isn't just a union, that's a political organization.
Exactly.
It's an anti-American organization, in my judgment. Not to say that those workers don't need proper representation. I belong to the AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. My dad belonged to the Plumbers Union. I'm a union guy. But when unions get involved the way that SEIU has gotten involved in politics,
yep. The leg breakers. The leg breakers.
They've crossed the line seriously, and they're out there talking about jail sentences and parole situations. It's like, wait a minute, what does this have to do with protecting the rights of the workers who signed on for your representation?
Exactly.
So understand that this business of vilifying law enforcement that we've principally seen coming at us from the Democratic Party, and I got to tell you, full disclosure, I'm registered as a Democrat. I can't tell you the last time I voted for a Democrat. My blood runs cold over this. Look, there's a couple of bad apples in law enforcement, absolutely. And there are doctors who shouldn't practice medicine. There are lawyers who shouldn't practice law. There are teachers who have no business in a classroom. There are airline pilots who shouldn't be driving taxi cabs, let alone flying airliners. But they are in the small minority. Mm-hmm. You know, I looked it up. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of malpractice lawsuits filed against doctors every year. You have a handful of shootings of questionable nature or use of excessive force or whatever. Relatively insignificant when you understand the millions of interactions of law enforcement that occur across America every year. So you have a couple of bad apples. You have these demagogues that go out there and vilify law enforcement and say, look at those terrible people and what they're doing. Those people are keeping the vast majority of Americans safe in their own communities, and they do so at great peril to their own lives. They get between the bad guy and law-abiding people who could be vulnerable.
Exactly.
And look at the result.
Yep.
Look at MS-13, and look at this nonsense. We're going to shield who? MS-13 from detection by ICE? We had 20 kids killed out on Long Island by MS-13. Every child, or almost every child, killed. If you saw the State of the Union, the two families that were there, in addition to Mr. Wermeyer's family. I mean, unbelievable. These were teenage girls killed and tortured by this vicious gang, but yet in the mind of the Democrats, they're all immigrants. They're all here to live the American dream. And what they're doing, and what this has all done, the politicization of the FBI, apparent politicization by the Obama administration, this attack on law enforcement by the Democratic Party is tearing America apart. You had Michael Moore, that fat pig, talking about white supremacists and white privilege. You know, could he be any more racist? You see, being racist doesn't only mean attacking people of color. It's attacking anybody because of race. And look at what we've seen in the news media. Look at the pollsters who come on, JJ, and talk about Latino voters and black voters.
These people are really
Jewish voters.
They're devoted to the divisiveness of leftist politics.
And let me tell you, we're hearing from them on so-called conservative programs. And you know what? If you want to look at demographics to do polls, it's legitimate, it's proper, it makes sense, but not based on race, religion, or ethnicity. If you want to talk about me and I'm retired My concerns are very different from my children who are first starting out. My youngest hasn't even graduated from college yet. His career, his life, God willing, lies before him. Do you think his concerns are the same as my concerns? Of course not. Do you think the guy that has a high school education has the same priorities at work that the guy with the PhD has? Of course not. Do you think the guy who is single has the same concerns of someone who is married and has children? Of course not. So if you look at all of that, look at socioeconomics. The guy that earns $500,000 a year has different concerns from the minimum wage factory worker.
Certainly,
they're all legitimate concerns, but that's the way that it makes sense to divide America and say, well, this group and that group, and these are the concerns. That's fine. But when you start to say that a black American who has the same education as a white American is different because he's black, by definition, folks, that's racism. When you talk about Latino voters being different from all other voters purely because their last name is Rodriguez and not Goldstein, that's racism. You know, I just want to give you a quick anecdote. The clock always moves too quickly when I'm on your terrific show, JJ. I have a very good friend, and this is the point about how we're so much more similar than different. I call him my brother from another mother. He's a college professor in North Carolina. His family goes back to before the Revolution. And when he wants meat, he goes out with his rifle and his family. They get to their deer stand and they kill the deer. They have it butchered and they have meat. When I want meat, I go to the supermarket. I'm Jewish. He's Southern Baptist. I'm first-generation American. I live in New York's biggest city, New York. He lives in a rural town in North Carolina. And I stayed with him because I was doing speeches down there. By the way, if you folks know of any opportunities for public speaking, let me know. You can go to my website, michaelcutler.net. Please go to that website. Please go to Front Page Mag and read my articles, Newsmax, because I want to educate as many Americans as possible. But he asked me when I was in town, would I address his college class? I said, absolutely. So 8 o'clock in the morning, I was staying at his house. You know, we got to the school. I was half asleep. And I noticed there were about 60 kids in the class, but there was a group of about a dozen black kids sitting kind of clumped together in the front of the room. I asked one of the white kids, because I was trying to make a point, what he was studying, what his plan was. And he said, well, I'm a business major. I'm planning to be an accountant like my father. I said, that's wonderful. Great profession. Good luck. I asked one of the black kids, what are you studying? He said, well, I'm a phys ed major. I said, what's your goal? He said, I'm going to be a gym teacher. I said, excellent. And then I gestured to all of the other black kids sitting with him with a sweep of my hand. I said, so I guess all of you guys are also majoring in phys ed and you're all aspiring gym teachers? And one of the black kids, very understandably, got up, furious at me, and said, where the hell do you come off making a presumption that because one of the black kids in this classroom is studying phys ed and plans to be a gym teacher, that that's what we're all doing? I said, are you angry? He said, beyond words. I said, you're not angry enough. I said, but everyone in this room should be offended by what I said because I said it just to get you to think. When people talk about black voters, that's what they're doing.
Yes.
They're making a presumption. If you've seen one, you've seen them all because they're all the same.
That's right. And these arrogant people wag their finger as if they could instruct all of the black people to stay in this circle. And,
yes.
And you're not allowed to go outside the circle because if you do, you're an Uncle Tom or you're being untrue to your people. It's all nonsense. And it is. It's the most ridiculous form of bigotry that there is. It absolutely is.
But I hope, and my buddy, the teacher, said, wow, that was a brilliant way of making the point. Every kid shook my hand after class. Every black kid hugged me. And he said, you know, Mr. Cutler, whenever I heard about black voters, Jewish voters, he said, it always bothered me, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and you just did it. Now, he said, I will never listen to those bums the same way again.
Now, before time gets away from us,
yes,
I want to revisit the State of the Union address on Tuesday night because overall, I wanted to get your general take on it and tell us how you believe it was received.
Oh, I think it was brilliant. I think it was inspirational. I think it demonstrated strength. I think it's consistent with this put America first, except for the 4 pillars on immigration.
Right.
And immigration is so significant. The reason we are in this mess, I mean, the Democrats must be trying to teach a new math. If you don't have enough jobs, bring in more workers. If you're worried that wages are too low, flood the market with that commodity known as labor. Never mind what supply and demand normally does to the value of a commodity. What he did was what immigration can do is to refute everything that the president wants to accomplish. And I'd love to know why he's doing it. I'm alarmed by it. I'm disappointed by it. I've been a very big supporter of Donald Trump. I still am. But someone really needs to explain what on earth this is about, because this one issue is enough to undermine public safety, national security, the middle class, our economy. Every single goal that he clearly and forcefully set forth could be undermined by those 4 pillars on immigration, specifically a massive legalization program that, because of the unknown numbers, could undermine national security irrevocably.
Yeah.
It
was bewildering. It really was.
Well, that's the word that I used in my article, by the way, bewildering. What I would suggest if I was talking to the president, if you want to legalize the 800,000, that's fine. And don't get caught up in this debate. Should we give them citizenship or not? Citizenship, of course, is the gold ring, but all they want is the brass ring. If you look at the 9/11 Commission report, and I have firsthand experience investigating and dealing with terrorists, providing an alien with lawful status with an official identity document is the whole ball of wax. A terrorist simply wants to be able to move freely around the United States in stealth mode so that he or she need not fear law enforcement interfering with them. And if they can do it under a fake name, more the better. So when you understand that, and you understand just how dangerous this program is, we really have a problem. Look, let me just read this one quick paragraph. This comes from the 9/11 Commission staff report on terrorist travel. It will be on Front Page magazine tomorrow. They usually post it about midnight tonight, New York time. But here is this quote from the 9/11 Commission staff report on terrorist travel. This report was prepared by the attorneys and federal agents who worked with the 9/11 Commission. Although there is evidence that some land and sea border entries of terrorists without inspection occurred, these conspirators mainly subverted the legal entry system by entering at airports, which was why I'm telling you there's a lot more involved than just the Mexican border, folks. And then they go on and say this. In doing so, they relied on a wide variety of fraudulent documents, on aliases, and on government corruption. Because terrorist operations were not suicide missions in the mid-1990s. Once in the United States, terrorists and their supporters tried to get legal immigration status that would permit them to remain here, primarily by committing serial or repeated immigration fraud, by claiming political asylum, and by marrying Americans. Many of these tactics would remain largely unchanged and undetected throughout the 1990s and up to the 9/11 attacks. And they go on and say this. They also say this is why sanctuary cities are so dangerous. Thus, abuse of the immigration system and a lack of interior immigration enforcement were unwittingly working together to support terrorist activity. It would remain largely unknown since no agency of the U.S. government analyzed terrorist travel patterns until after 9/11. This lack of attention meant that critical opportunities to disrupt terrorist travel and therefore deadly terrorist operations were missed. And finally, we get to this paragraph. Terrorists in the 1990s, and by the way, this applies to this very day, as well as the 9/11 hijackers, needed to find a way to stay in or embed themselves in the United States if their operational plans were to come to fruition. As already discussed, this could be accomplished legally by marrying an American citizen, achieving temporary worker status, which is exactly what DACA was, or applying for asylum after entering. In many cases, the act of filing for an immigration benefit, they're not even talking about citizenship here, folks. The act of filing for an immigration benefit sufficed to permit the alien to remain in the country until the petition was adjudicated. Terrorists were free to conduct surveillance, coordinate operations, obtain and receive funding, go to school and learn English, make contacts in the United States, acquire necessary materials, and execute an attack. So while the politicians are going to go back and forth, we're tough, no citizenship, That's not fair. We need to make them sit. Doesn't matter. Once you give them a document and say, we're letting you out of the cage, they're free to fly anywhere in the country and pretty much do anything that they want. And the president is about to unleash potentially millions of such aliens across the United States of America.
Exactly. One of the assumptions that's being made is that every single one of those 1.8 million, again, dubious that number is, that every single one of them is a Mexican or Latino. This is a huge mistake. It really is. To say that is to lack any understanding about the intelligence of our enemies in the world.
And by the way, you need to know that we have people who are Middle Eastern terrorists who look for all the world like they are from Latin America.
Yes. Yep.
We had a case where there was surveillance being conducted on a stash house in Houston, Texas, in a Mexican community. Some guy with black curly hair, could have passed for Mexican, was stopped. I got the phone call because when they dug through the truck, he couldn't speak Spanish. He couldn't speak English. He was able to speak Hebrew. He had an Israeli passport that he had shoved into the upholstery of the truck when he saw the agents approaching him. He was from the Middle East. We have terror training camps in the tri-border region of Brazil, where Brazil abuts with Paraguay and Argentina. We have Iranian shock troops arriving on weekly flights directly into Caracas, Venezuela. And the idea that we're going to give people lawful status without the capacity to interview them, forget about field investigations, would be catastrophic and do irrevocable damage. You cannot unring this bell. And once you start the process, you can't stop it, because lawsuits would properly be filed and people would say, wait a minute, I meet all the qualifications. How could you arbitrarily stop the train when it didn't pull into the station yet because I didn't get my immigration benefit? And I guarantee you that 90% of the judges will find in favor of that kind of an alien if the president does what he's promising to do. And he acknowledges, by the way, it's 3 times bigger than the Obama DACA program. I've given it a new name, by the way. I'm now calling it PACA, Permanent Action Claimed Childhood Arrival. The new name is PACA, P-A-C-C-A. That's what I've come to call it.
Now, before we go, I just wanted to share with you a couple of takeaways from the State of the Union address Tuesday night that I had. First of all, I was a bit shocked at the reaction of the Congressional Black Caucus when President Trump declared that black unemployment is now lower than it has ever been before in the United States since they started taking measurements. I was really surprised that the Congressional Black Caucus chose to sit there with these hateful looks on their faces while the president was touting the success of blacks in America. It really was disappointing.
Like that, American blacks don't need enemies. Look, they may claim to be the Black Caucus. They're not looking out for the benefit of the average American black.
Right. And here's my other takeaway from the State of the Union. Nancy Pelosi. She looked like she had 1,000 seeds stuck in her dentures Tuesday night. Am I wrong?
I love Dennis Miller's line about her. He said she's so bats that he's convinced she sleeps upside down. Every time I see her, I envision her in that position.
I love Dennis. I love Dennis Miller. He's very intelligent.
He is.
And
he can't be funny and not be smart, though.
His wit is so sharp. And I miss his TV show. I miss being able to hear him give a weekly commentary on what's happening politically. I know he's on the radio, but radio hosts have this really bad habit of not listening to other radio hosts. And usually it's because, while we're on the air, somebody else is on the air. And, I can't listen to Rush every day. I can't listen to Alex Jones every day or Sean Hannity or whoever else is out there, Michael Reagan or what have you, or, Michael Savage. So, what are we left to do? We all come up with our own ideas, and then every once in a while, somebody like you will come along and make me remember what I'm missing because I don't listen to Dennis Miller. I need to.
Yeah, and we all do.
Mike, I thank you so much for being with us this week. And, things will get better, and they are getting better. It's just that half the country is so filled with rage and hate that they don't want to acknowledge that things are getting better.
Before I could change channels, I had The View on this morning, believe it or not, and they were complaining that the president's ratings are soaring and they don't understand it. I think we understand it.
Yeah, speaking of bats, yeah, there it is. Michael, thank you so much. MichaelCutler.net, is that right?
That's right, that I do my own radio show on internet radio, Blog Talk Radio, the Michael Cutler Hour, Friday nights at 7 o'clock East Coast time. You can go there and listen to the podcast. Thank you for having me on.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, little snowflake falling from the sky.
In California, at least 13 people were arrested as hundreds blocked traffic on 2 major highways, waving Mexican flags and burning a giant effigy of Donald Trump. Police fired rubber bullets, and pepper spray at hundreds of protesters after the crowds took over major intersections.
Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
Fraud, homophobia, sexual assault, white supremacy.
In terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And a will to rest to make things better, and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities.
White privilege!
Load up, we're rubber bullets. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Here in New York, as many as 10,000 people surged through the streets and surrounded the barricaded-off Trump Tower where Donald Trump lives.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake. We reject the president-elect! Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
I think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets. Little snowflake falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat, radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard. Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Fake ass.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president. That's not my president.
Load up, load up, load up, we're rubber bullets. Falling in my hand.
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
Falling on my head.
You just voted in a Nazi fascist.
Falling on my nose.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
Live from the Nightside Radio Studios.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
Thank you, Marcus, and welcome back, everybody. It's hour number 2 of the Thursday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show on this first day of February. And ladies and gentlemen, plenty more news to share with you today. And phone lines are open at 855-853-5227. And folks, I've got a special offer this hour just for you. And especially, I want to extend this offer to you folks listening at redstatetalkradio.com or listening to Red State via Roku. You folks, let your ears perk up here. I am going to do this today only. And I'm going to open up the phone line. Again, it's toll free at 855-853-5227. And for the first person that calls that's listening at redstatetalkradio.com or on Roku, I am going to give you 2 J.J. McCartney Show coffee mugs. These are collector's items. And I'm going to give you a free copy of the book by pastor and author Carl Gallups. It's called Gods and Thrones. So the first person that's listening via Red State Talk Radio or listening on Roku to Red State Talk Radio, you call 855-853-5227 and you will win 2 free coffee mugs and a copy of Carl Gallup's best-selling book, Gods and Thrones. Okay? Let's see if everybody's paying attention today. All right, folks, let us turn our attention to the news. President Trump, 7 hours ago, this broke. President Trump to declassify surveillance memo, according to sources, as Pelosi seeks Nunes ouster. Could this woman be a bigger loser? I don't think so. President Trump is expected to swiftly declassify a controversial memo on purported surveillance abuses. Sources tell Fox News, even as Democrats raise objections that edits were made to the document since it was approved for release by a key committee. Those objections fueled a new round of partisan recriminations today, with House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi firing off a letter to Speaker Paul Ryan demanding the chairman of that committee, Republican Devin Nunes, be removed. Chairman Nunes' deliberately dishonest actions make him unfit to serve as chairman, said Pelosi. Tell you more about that in a little while. Right now, we're going to go to North Carolina. Hello, North Carolina. You're on the J.J. McCartney Show. Hello, North Carolina. You with us? Is the caller there? North Carolina. Okay. For some reason, they're not talking to me. They went away. Don't know why. I don't know why. Okay, I tell you what we're going to do. Everybody stand by. Just stand by. This won't take long. I assure you. Yeah. everything was looking good there, and then all of a sudden, nothing happened. Yep. All right, folks. So we'll continue covering the story here, and what we will do is we're going to reboot our telephone computer just in case there's a problem there. I don't think there was, because we were talking to Michael Cutler and everything was working fine. So we're not going to worry too much about it. We'll come back to it in just a minute, and we will re-extend the offer here. Okay. The objections by Nancy Pelosi don't appear to be halting the publication plans. The likelihood is that the release may come tomorrow morning. President Trump already has made clear that he supports the release of the document before the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee late Wednesday charged that Nunes made material changes to the memo. Adam Schiff tweeted, discovered late tonight, that Chairman Nunes made material changes to the memo he sent to the White House, changes not approved by the committee. White House therefore reviewing a document the committee has not approved for release. Schiff is another dingbat Democrat from California who opposes the memo's release in any form. He wrote that the committee's minority determined the letter was not the same document. Really? So let me get this straight, you Democrats. Suddenly you care about the authenticity of documents? You mean like birth certificates, maybe? Really? Nunes' office countered that the changes were made, that the changes were minor, and he blasted the complaint as a bizarre distraction from the abuses detailed in the memo. Fox News is told that the version Trump plans to declassify contains technical edits made at the request of the FBI. Sources said the edited version was shown to 5 FBI officials at the White House Tuesday afternoon. Sources said the officials were satisfied that the edited memo addresses concerns that the FBI had about the earlier version they reviewed on Monday. Yet, in a rare and surprising rebuke, an FBI statement released yesterday asserted that they had grave concerns about material omissions of fact that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. Yeah, right. A source familiar with the memo said the edits included some addressing grammar and clarity, as well as an edit done at the request of the FBI and another at the request of committee Democrats. The source challenged Schiff's claims, saying the edits were made before the memo went to the White House. The document purportedly is critical of the FBI's use of surveillance during the 2016 presidential campaign. White House spokeswoman Lindsay Walters said today that Trump has read the memo. Next steps are not yet clear, but the president may transmit the letter back to the committee with a declaration that it has been declassified. The committee would then release the memo. Under official rules, the committee is technically able to release such information after a 5-day period unless the president objects. The committee formally started that clock with a vote this past Monday. So there you have it. The Democrats are whining. The FBI director is whining. Why do you suppose that is? Could it be because the memo includes information that reveals exactly how corrupt elements of the Democrat Party and the FBI were. Folks, do you trust the FBI? Do you trust the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the National Security Agency, the CIA? Do you trust our intelligence community? And the other question is this. I mean, Michael Cutler made a good point. Not everybody associated with the FBI is a bad guy. And, and I'm happy to concede that point. But let's revisit the meeting on the tarmac in Arizona between then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, the husband of Hillary Clinton, who was under investigation at the time of the meeting. And, this obviously is a damaging bit of information, especially the part how the FBI used the Steele dossier to obtain warrants for wiretapping of the Trump Towers, or the Trump Tower, I should say, the Trump campaign. And let's not forget the other material fact here, that is the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, along with the Hillary Clinton campaign, paid this group in Washington, who in turn paid Christopher Steele, the former British intelligence agent, to manufacture a dossier that made outrageous and absolutely untrue allegations about Donald Trump in Russia. There is absolutely no question. I mean, this is absolute corruption. It really is. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Arizona, welcome to the J.J. McCartney Show.
Hello, JJ.
Well, hello there. How are you?
Oh, it's been a while. I've been very busy. Yep, just got back from Alabama a week ago and been recuperating from that trip. And
did you?
I'm doing good.
Did you come back from Alabama with a banjo on your knee?
No, I didn't do that because I can't play the banjo, fortunately. But the thought was there.
Now,
yes.
I know you've got things on your mind. What do you want? Where do you want to start?
Gosh, I don't know. This train wreck thing is really kind of crazy. I think the timing of it is a little questionable.
Yes.
I think it's kind of, I don't believe in coincidences very much with the train running into a truck on the track full of GOP people.
Yes. 300 GOP lawmakers on the train.
Yes. It seems a little hinky to me, especially since it was right after the State of the Union address.
Right. And they were headed to a retreat at Greenbrier in West Virginia to go over their legislative priorities and plans for the year.
Yes, and praise God, none of them were seriously hurt, thank God.
Yes.
And they're all there. They made it there. The president did speak to them today, but he hasn't released the memo yet. We're still waiting for that.
Right. Anticipation is that it probably will be released tomorrow morning.
And then again, it could wait until next week sometime, depending on what's going on. I don't really like the fact that they wanted to wait and rewrite some of the words and whatever that were in the memo. maybe to kind of cover over their real crimes in some kind of way, or what, gloss over them a little bit, like they did whenever Comey decided to say that Clinton, wasn't under investigation. She was just, it was an incident. Yeah,
it was a matter. Yes.
Yeah.
And that happened, by the way, after the tarmac meeting.
Yes, it did. In fact, what, a day or two after the meeting? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that wasn't really a coincidence either, I'm thinking.
Well, yesterday, my first instinct regarding the Amtrak train colliding with the garbage truck. I mean, what do you suppose the arithmetic? What do you suppose the odds are against all of that happening by chance?
Oh God,
it's astronomical.
1 billion to 1, 10 billion to 1. Yeah, that's way up there. To me, it just seemed a little hinky and everything that it happened like that, and that the truck driver was dead and the passenger in the truck was severely injured and still in critical condition. And I'm just wondering, how in the heck did that truck know to be on the track at that time?
Right.
And I'm thinking that the whoever was responsible, the DOJ, the FBI, deep state, whatever, whoever was responsible for that, they messed up because that dump truck wasn't heavy enough to make that train go off the track.
I guess it leads to the inevitable question. If a train hits a truck in the woods and there's nobody to hear the scream of Allahu Akbar, then is it really a terrorist crime? I mean, you think about this, folks. We have not heard any details about the identities of the driver of the truck or the other passenger in the truck. Have you heard any more details since yesterday on this?
Haven't heard any names. I haven't heard anything at all about them. They haven't said anything about them, where they were from or anything.
I think that it's remarkably naive of the media to try and claim that there was nothing more to this than just an accident. That seems to me to be a stretch.
I'm with you on that. I just don't believe it to be an accident. I think that it was something that was done on purpose, and who are these people that were in the vehicle, And I understand, if they're withholding their names or whatever till their family is notified, if that's the case, but they haven't even said that.
No.
No one's ever said anything about them. They haven't said that they're waiting to notify family members or anything. There's been nothing at all about the driver or the passenger. They didn't even say which hospital the passenger went to.
And, this makes me worry that local law enforcement all around the country is now in a position where they can be instructed by authorities to withhold details and information that could very easily clear up exactly what happened yesterday. And we saw them do the exact same thing with Las Vegas.
Yes. I mean, every now and then they come up with new tidbits on what happened in Vegas, but nobody's really given us any answers as to how or why. We haven't seen any videotape of any of it. And there should be video if they took anything at all out of the casino that this supposedly happened in. There should be all kinds of video of this man coming and going out of that room.
Yep.
I'm sure he didn't just take all of that stuff into that room in one day.
Exactly.
That's a lot of stuff to carry in and out.
Yeah, especially for a guy that's, 60 was he 65 years old or 63 years old or whatever it was?
Something like that.
You know, it stretches the bounds of credulity. And the fact that we don't, why is it that the authorities are so tight-lipped? They're afraid. They're afraid of losing funding. They're afraid of threats perhaps being made against them or their family. I mean, this is. I mean, there's so much clarity that could be brought to light immediately, and the fact that they're not doing it simply makes them look even more suspicious.
Yes, it does. And this rabbit hole goes very deep. There's so much that is so evil in our nation. We've let it go for so long. We've gotten complacent in our voting and whatnot, just giving it to whoever wanted to take over so that we didn't have to deal with it ourselves.
Right.
And really, we the people are the ones that are supposed to be running this nation, not our leaders that we elect into office. They're supposed to be working for us. And they forgot their role, and we forgot our role. We're their boss. We're their employer. We're the ones that are supposed to set the standards for these people. And somehow or another, that got lost on the wayside. And nobody really can say definitely when that actually happened. It happened so long ago that nobody knows when that happened, you know?
Yep.
But we need to start holding these people accountable for what they have done. And we ourselves have to answer for this mess as well, because we're responsible for having allowed it to happen.
Yes. Yep. No doubt about it. It's the frog in the kettle, basically. And, the people of the United States need to wake up. They absolutely do. Susan, we got another caller waiting on the line. I thank you for the call, and I'm glad you're home and safe. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk again very soon. But we do have another caller waiting in the wings, and we need to take a break. So thank you for being with us, Susan. God bless you. Take care. All right, folks. Let's see. I believe we have North Carolina back on the line. Hello, North Carolina.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Who's this?
Mari.
My
name is Mari.
Mari, how are you today?
I'm frustrated, overwhelmed, and just totally disgusted at what has happened to our country. It's amazing that nobody wants to wake up. They don't want to pay attention. They don't want to do anything. And those that have awakened are just complacent. Okay. What can we do?
Right. There's a lot of people out there that, they're too busy living the day-to-day lives and wrapped up in minutia to really, get involved. And we all have to be involved. There's no,
absolutely.
There's only so much that the American people can take before we reach a point of no return. And, Donald Trump, I think, has done a lot to address some of these issues, but there's a lot of elephants in the room as well. And you tell me what you think the biggest elements are that have led to the decline in America, and I'm speaking specifically morality and just the corruption that we see within the government and outside of the government.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm embarrassed that I am from a state that Loretta Lynch is from. She graduated from my alma mater.
Wow.
And for her to pull off something like this, put our country in this kind of chaos, no, it is not acceptable. I'm appalled at our Democrats I'm appalled at our Republicans. You know, I'm 61 years old. There was a time I loved my country. But I always wondered, why can't we get those senators out of those seats? Why won't they get up? Why won't they move? Because we won't make them move. They've been in there 30, 40 years. It makes no sense. They look like crypt keepers to me.
You know, the American people need to demand term limits.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And people say, well, how are you going to get the American people to agree on that? And I think all you have to do is look at our dilemma. $20 trillion in debt. Abortion on demand. And we've got so many moral issues that, you know, I hear people say this all the time. You know, people say, God bless America, but you look around at the way that our morality has crumbled in the last 50 years, and they say, well, how in the world can God continue to bless a nation that is unrepentant?
Yes, yes.
I worry about that every day.
Unfortunately, we're living these end times, and they are here. You cannot deny them. You cannot turn away from them, and you cannot act like it's not happening. It's happening right before our eyes. Wake up, people. Wake up.
You know, something else something else that's led to this, Maury, is the constant attack on families in America.
Yes.
You know, where do young children learn the moral standards that they will grow up to hold dear? I know where I learned mine. It was in the home.
And absolutely, I did.
But
the fathers are out of the home. Now the mothers are out of the home. Now the children are out of the home. What do you expect?
And what you're seeing, too, is an orchestrated attempt to sell those children on these alternate lifestyles.
Yes.
And this, to me, it's child abuse. It is actual assault on young children that have no business being told anything about their sexuality at the age of 5.
I agree 100%. 100%. Our education system is fractured. Our monetary system is fractured. Our government, everything is fractured.
And we've got
everything.
We either have to compel people to go back to a time when America's morality was it was a matter of common sense. We've lost it because people have attacked our point of reference. Our point of reference used to be the Bible in America.
Yes.
But what is the point of reference now? The TV?
Yes.
The tabloids.
Which I don't look at TV. I will not look at TV. It is just it's disgusting.
It's a wasteland.
It's disgusting.
It's like
and you try to tell. It's
like looking at the business end of a septic tank.
Yes. I'm trying to find an even keel here. But again, as you say, there's no point of reference.
That's right.
That's
right.
None.
An old brother that I knew long ago said the sign of a well-read Bible is the sign of a well-fed soul. And you know what? How many parents take the time to study the Bible and to teach their kids to study the Bible. How many families out there pray before their evening meal now?
Sit down in a restaurant. Sit down in a restaurant.
Yeah. If you pray in public, people will look at you as if you're from another planet. And it's really sad. Well, are they pounding your walls down there, Maury?
They're actually replacing my roof. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. That's fine. I just don't.
Wow.
I remember when I lived in Arkansas. We had a tornado blow over our house, and it dropped softball-sized hail on the roof. And it sounded a lot like that, except there was much more of it. I couldn't believe it. But it is. It's important. If they're working on your roof, that I'm glad they are, because obviously if it needs repair, the last thing you need to do is wake up in a puddle of melted snow or rain or whatever is coming down. But Maury, first of all, I am thrilled that you called. It's very nice to make your acquaintance. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you, do you have email?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let me tell you what my email address is. It's very simple. It's jj@jjmccartney.com. And if you will send me an email, send me your name and address, and I'm going to send you a couple of J.J. McCartney Show coffee mugs and a copy of pastor and author Carl Gallup's best-selling book, Gods and Thrones.
Wow. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You so much.
And I hope you'll enjoy them.
It's just great to speak on that is like-minded. I'm finding a problem speaking to somebody that speaks the same language that I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something is wrong. They don't want to admit it.
I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church.
Oh, yeah.
I went to college at a Southern Baptist college. And, I look back on those days and it just fills me with renewed hope at the fact that, here we are, 40 years later, and I still have the zeal. I still have the love in my heart that, it can't be taken away. The world cannot take away what Christ gives us.
Yes. That is so right.
And none of us should ever walk around feeling defeated. That's what the world is trying to do. They're trying to beat us down. But we're not defeated. We are victorious through Christ.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Maury,
thanks for letting me speak just a little.
What part of North Carolina are you from?
I'm actually in Greensboro.
Greensboro. I flew through there once. On my way to
beautiful.
Oh, it is. I was blown away by how gorgeous the Carolinas are. They're just wonderful. Yeah. And I'd never been there before. And unfortunately, I didn't have a whole lot of time to enjoy them. I was there for about 12 hours through North and South Carolina. And I thought, I could see myself kicking back and enjoying some time where the climate is a little kinder and gentler than it is in western Nebraska this time of year.
Okay.
I envy you your climate.
Well, I love it here.
Now, Maury, thank you again for calling. It's such a blessing, and it is so important. And people understand what the Bible says. It says, "Don't forsake the gathering of the brethren." It's so important that we hold each other up, that we lift each other up, we encourage one another. And and you know what? Anytime you need encouragement, please come back. We would love to speak to you, and it's a true blessing to make the acquaintance of somebody who we're already family. We're already family.
Yes. Yes, we are. Yes,
all right. Well, don't forget to send me that email. I want to get these mugs and the book on the way to you. And again, thank you so much for being with us today. It's a real blessing.
All right. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And I'm continue to listen to you.
Thank you so much, Maury. God bless you, my dear.
All right.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, friends, we're going to take a quick time out. We'll come back with more in just a minute. And by the way, one of the fun things I'm excited about, February is here. And on Saturday, me and Susan, my wife, are going to celebrate our 29th wedding anniversary. And on the same day, we're going to celebrate our daughter's birthday. She was born on our second wedding anniversary. Okay? So I'm not going to tell you how old she is. If you go to public schools, you may need to consult a calculator, but you'll figure it out. We'll be back in just a minute. Right after we take these commercial messages. Actually, no, they're not commercials, really. After we take this time out, be right back. And phone lines are open, 855-853-5227. Be right back.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney back here for our good friends at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. You know, folks, there's one thing that there never seems to be a shortage of in this world, and that is uncertainty, unrest. You know, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Natural disasters, economic downturns, whatever it is, you can be prepared by going to MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. They have got everything you need, from ProPure gravity-fed water filtration systems to Kimberly stoves to these composting toilets. Ladies and gentlemen, at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com, you can prepare for anything. Food storage, no problem. Advice, no problem. Call our good friend Sue at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com. Find out what's there for you. Great prices, great advice, and guess what, folks? You'll find it all at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com.
You send a kid to the emergency room for a treatable illness like asthma. They end up taking up a hospital bed. It costs you gave them treatment early, and they got some treatment, a breathalyzer or an inhalator, not a breathalyzer. You know what? It would cost about the same as what we would spend over the course of 10 years. It would cost what it would cost us. All right, okay. We're going to. It would cost us about the same as it would cost for about, hold on one second, I can't hear myself. And they got some treatment, and you gave them treatment early. I haven't had much sleep in the last 48 hours, so.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards, and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
He's not angry. He's just really intense. More J.J. McCartney Show coming up next.
My sister Katie and I are bargain hunters.
But my sister Kelly showed me an article that made me change a really bad habit. I used to buy bargain knockoffs on the street.
You mean counterfeit merchandise?
And this can lead to more Americans losing their jobs.
So, no more buying fakes, right?
Right, just honest bargain hunting.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being with us on the Thursday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. Well, more panic, ladies and gentlemen. There's people out there panicked right now, saying that the Earth's magnetic poles could be about to flip, sparking chaos and mass blackouts. Parts of the planet could be rendered uninhabitable by the reversal. Experts have warned. Now, keep in mind, folks, this is from thesun.com. So just, grain of salt here. The Earth's magnetic poles could be about to flip. Experts, obviously, have warned that the change could result in catastrophe and possibly disasters of unimaginable proportions. According to an Undark report, the flip could cause devastating streams of particles from the sun, galactic cosmic rays, and enhanced ultraviolet B rays from a radiation. Okay? Now, what they're talking about is the magnetosphere, or the magnetosphere, whichever you prefer. The report warns that satellite timing systems that govern electric grids could fail, causing a ripple effect that would shut off lights, computers, and phones. Even flushing the toilet could become impossible, according to the article. The article shared concerns from Daniel Baker, director of the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado Boulder, who warned that parts of the planet will become uninhabitable during a reversal. But a global apocalypse isn't guaranteed. As NASA explains, many doomsday theorists have tried to take this natural geological occurrence and suggest it could lead to Earth's destruction. But would there be any dramatic effects? Now, the answer from the geologic and fossil records that we have found from hundreds of past magnetic polarity shifts seems to say, nah, not so much. Not so much. Now, the fact is, yes, the Earth's magnetic poles drift, and sometimes they flip. And the magnetic field over our planet, I mean, you never know, but they say that the magnetic field over South America has been weakening. But we're talking about relative minor degrees of weakening. It's really not nearly as dramatic as the doomsdayers want you to think. And there's a first time for everything, but what usually happens when somebody tells you the sky is falling? As it turns out, the sky isn't falling. It's like, remember all the doomsday scenarios where people were saying, the Lord's coming back on this date. So sell everything you own. Join us as we huddle together and wait. I cannot think of anything that is more un-Christian than for people to gather around together and just huddle together and wait for the end to arrive. I don't think that's what God wants us to do with the rest of our lives. The simple fact is, we're all going to die someday. It says in the Bible that it's appointed unto man once to die, and then the judgment. But, if people just sit there and dwell on when they're going to die, what a miserable life that must be. Just wondering when the end is going to come. Life is made to be lived. It's even made to be enjoyed. It's not made for us to be pessimists. It's not made for us to say, oh, this could happen. I mean, the faith that we have in God, it must be stronger than the fear that the world tries to throw at you. We all have this opportunity. We may not know when the end is going to come, but we can absolutely know how it's going to go for us. And I want people to understand this. You know, you don't have to lay awake worrying about what's going to happen to you. Not if you come to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And people say, "Oh boy, don't get preachy now." No, listen, folks. There's nothing formulaic here. You need to take Jesus to heart. Okay? It needs to be in your heart. First of all, by recognizing that we're all sinners. And by acknowledging the fact that you're a sinner, you're acknowledging that there's a brokenness between you and God. And that brokenness, that gap has to be bridged if you are going to, if you're going to move on to eternity with God. And people try to make it too complicated. You know who God is? And God is your Father. He is your Father. He is the one that made you. And how many of us, you know, especially those of us that have lost our earthly fathers, how much would you give to have one more day spent talking with your dad who's passed on? What would you be willing to part with for one more day on this earth with your father? Now here's the really good news. You don't have to part with anything to have this glorious reunion with your spiritual father. And believe me, your spiritual father loves you every bit as much as your earthly father did, and much, much more. Do you have an emptiness inside you that you just can't fill? Do you have this constant sense of loss because you can't pick up the phone and talk to your father anymore? Well, you don't have to pick up a phone, but you can talk to your spiritual father. Anytime. Anytime. And there's only one thing you have to part with. There's only one thing you have to part with to have this personal relationship with the God who made you. And the thing you have to part with is your sin. And look, none of us are perfect. And that's why we need Jesus to help us bridge the gap. Because God is holy. He can have nothing to do with sin. Nothing to do with our sin. And again, that's where Jesus comes in. He conquered death. He conquered hell. He conquered sin. And he bore the punishment and the shame for it on that cross. And, you know, if that were the end of the story, we would all be doomed. But it's not the end of the story. They pierced his side, the thorn of crowns. He bore our shame, and he died on the cross. And then he was buried in a tomb with a big stone rolled in front of it. But on the third day, the stone was rolled away, and Jesus was no longer in the tomb. He rose from the dead. He visited with his apostles, many, 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 many witnesses that saw Jesus in the flesh after he was dead and buried. And some people choose not to believe it. They say it's a fairy tale. It's not a fairy tale. There is more evidence of Jesus, his life, his death, and his resurrection. There's more evidence of that More evidence of that than any of the theories that people have about how the universe was formed by a big bang. Now listen, in order for you to take Christ into your heart, first you have to have a soft heart. You have to understand that the only reason that he came was to retrieve you, the good shepherd going after the lost sheep. It's a gift that none of us deserve, but it's a gift that's freely given. Now, why am I telling you this on Thursday? Because somebody out there may need to hear this today. Somebody out there that's struggling. Somebody out there that feels a despair in their heart. Well, the despair can be replaced with eternal hope. And the understanding that you are so loved by your spiritual Father. You are so loved by God Almighty. His love for you is unwavering. It's eternal. All you have to do is talk to him. All you have to do is talk to him. Invite him in. Find a Bible. Find a Bible-believing church. And you will be amazed at how your eyes are opened to the love that God has for you. It's as simple as that. People try to make things too complicated these days. It doesn't take an iPad. It doesn't take a computer. It doesn't take a cell phone. All it takes is a humble and contrite spirit. And then you'll be amazed when you reach out to God. He'll be right there to meet you when you're ready. And please don't wait too long. These days are promised to no one. Tomorrow is promised to no one. As you come to a right relationship with God through Jesus Christ, and you'll be amazed how much your eyes are opened, and you will find what it is that you're seeking. The emptiness will be filled. And your whole outlook on life will change so dramatically. Listen, folks, we have today. Today is the hour. Today is the time. And what you will find will change you completely. Call on him today, because tomorrow, as I said, is promised to no one. Hey, listen, I want to thank my guest in hour number 1. That is Michael Cutler. And also want to thank our callers today. Susan, thank you. And Maury, thank you for calling. It was a true blessing to talk to you today. And I can't tell you how much I needed that. So thank you. All right, folks, tomorrow on the program, the mysterious Colonel will be with us. And we'll also be, of course, doing the Friday, well, it's the Friday extravaganza on Fridays. We'll talk about the week that was. And if the memo has been released by then, obviously, that'll be part of the conversation as well. Doesn't it make you wonder what they're so scared of at the FBI and the DNC? I mean, these people literally are staying awake at night worrying. And I only hope and pray that this memo was written with enough courage to expose what's really happened. The people need to become outraged at what the government has done to them. All right, my friends, be good to yourselves, and if you possibly can, be good to someone else. And remember, we'll win in the end because there are more of us than there are of them, because God is with us, and because we are all in this thing together. Have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll see you right back here on Friday. God bless everybody. See you then.